I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like the sequels. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back in with another video, and today's story time I'm going to talk about my fondest Forced Friday memories. So with Triple Force Friday passing us by, I have realized, well, I knew this before, but I've really come to accept the fact that we're not going to get another Forced Friday for a little while. The next Star Wars trilogy isn't slated to be released until 2022, I think, which leaves us many years until we get to experience Force Friday again. I feel like Force Friday for me has been such a monumental moment in getting me excited for the film that's upcoming. So I really just wanted to kind of recount some of the memories I have with the various Force Fridays we've had since Disney has taken the helm of Star Wars. So starting off with the first Force Friday, this one was leading up to The Force Awakens. This one was really special because at the time we didn't really know the direction of the sequel trilogy. We hadn't yet gotten to experience these new characters, so it all just felt very new and fresh. I remember I was so excited just for the event to be able to like get the merchandise or just see what merchandise was out there that I actually ended up going to like the midnight opening for Toys R Us back when Toys R Us was a thing. I know this is a long time ago, clearly guys, but I went to the Toys R Us event and I didn't actually plan on buying anything. I was working at the Lego store, so there was no need for me to buy any of the Lego sets there, just get them where I work. So I really just wanted to go there and just kind of observe and see what new stuff would be out. So that midnight before Force Friday, on what was basically kind of an impulsive decision, I went up to a Toys R Us. There was surprisingly a line, and it was just a cool experience, you know, being around so many people excited about the resurrection of Star Wars and Star Wars films in general. It was just an overall great time. I was actually given that wall element piece that came with the printed Stormtrooper on it. That was like a Force Friday exclusive type of deal, which was a surprise to me. I didn't actually know that they were going to be giving that away. So it at least ended up in hindsight making a little bit more sense that I went there. But I also remember I had to go to work at like 6 a.m. the next morning. So it was a little bit of an irresponsible decision on my hand going to a toy premiere that late at night and knowing I had to be up for work the next morning. But this is what Star Wars can drive a guy to do, man. I do some crazy things for Star Wars. So that next morning I went to work and I knew I couldn't get all the sets day one. I think that was around the time I was like trying to buy the old UCS Star Destroyer. So I just decided, what sets can I get before I go off to school? What would, like, I guess mean the most to me? So I ended up getting the Advent Calendar because I knew there was no way I was going to be able to get that after then. I got the Millennium Falcon and I got Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle. I like that combination of sets because it gave me all the main characters, well, at least most of them. I think Poe would have been excluded from that group, but most of the main characters, good guys and bad guys. And I remember just sitting in my dorm room building those sets, just kind of imagining where the story is going to go. I think at that time I was still under the impression that Finn was going to be the light side Force user of the group, so I had him primarily holding the lightsaber. And then of course after I actually saw the film, that lightsaber ended up transitioning to Rey. But it was just a very exciting time, you know, with these new Star Wars stories we were getting. Just so many possibilities were opened up. We didn't really have much of an idea of exactly what was going to be happening. So I really just have such fond memories of sitting in my dorm room, looking at those sets, analyzing them, figuring out what characters were going to have what roles in the films, trying to just take in every bit of information that was out there. And that means a lot coming from me because I'm someone who typically doesn't like look into spoilers, but I definitely look pretty deeply into stuff for The Force Awakens, whether it be like, I know there was that one famous set shot of like Poe's X-Wing on the tarmac, and there was like the blue tarp kind of covering it, and just little things like that, little gems that could get me even more excited for that film. So next up, I believe, would have been Rogue Friday, and this one was really interesting too because it was the first Star Wars spin-off film we were getting. And I mean, I really just had no idea what to expect with this film. I guess we knew a little bit more going into it insofar as we knew that this was going to be how they got the Death Star plans. But in terms of just like how they would handle the tone, whether or not they would be willing to take chances and make this a different type of Star Wars movie, there was just a lot to really kind of talk about and think about going into this film. So I remember for Rogue Friday, I was actually away at school in Michigan. So me and my good friend Andrew ended up going to Toys R Us once again. Then I missed miss those Toys R Us Forest Fridays. Holy crap. There was, of course, a line, because I think people were really realizing just how important Forest Friday was in terms of getting a hold of the merchandise first and, you know, not having to worry about things going out of stock, which was actually a big deal that night because I, at the time, was really into collecting the Black Series figures. I still appreciate the figures. I just, with doing YouTube and Lego, haven't really like tried to collect them as much recently. But I remember there was this Toys R Us exclusive. I think it was actually the Hover Tank pilot. That was going to be a Toys R Us exclusive figure that night, and my friend and I were like trying to talk to people in line because we both wanted to get one, and we were trying to figure out how many people ahead of us in line also plan on getting one. And I think that like with what we gathered when we were talking to people was like if everyone who was going to get one got one, I think there might be like one person behind us who just was not able to get one. So whenever the doors opened, there was literally a rush to the Black Series aisle to find these figures. And I remember my friend and I basically decided, okay, we'll split up because there's going to be like, I think there were like two sections where they had Star Wars stuff, and it wasn't obvious where those figures were going to be. So I think he went to one section and then I went to the other section. So the doors open and we both dart into the store trying to get a hold of these figures first, which, I mean, thinking about it, like, holy crap, I was that guy running into a toy store at midnight trying to grab an action figure, but that's just how I was back then. So I remember I went and I found the section, like, where the Hover Tank pilot was, and I'm like, okay, awesome. But there was also, like, a group of people around me, and they just start grabbing for it, and I don't know what happened, I just kind of froze up, like, I just got so anxious all of a sudden, really for no reason. Like the figure was right there in front of me. So I remember I grabbed one, and then everyone was kind of like grabbing them and like beside me. And I looked down and I realized, holy crap, there's no more on the rack. So my friend comes over and I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry, I can only grab one. And he looks down and says, oh, there is one right there. I guess someone had pulled one off the rack and it just fell. I didn't even notice it sitting right there in front of me. So it was a happy story after all. We both ended up getting the figures, but in hindsight, it's just so crazy to think about how big of a rush and just how much excitement there was around a Star Wars spin-off film with characters that we had never met before. We had no idea what they were going to be, how they were going to be in the film, but people were still just so excited for the prospect of getting a different type of Star Wars film. If I'm not mistaken, for Rogue Friday, I think I actually had to wait to get the Lego sets. Since I was away at school during the actual Rogue Friday, I had to wait until I went back home. Then I bought all the sets, and then I brought them back to my dorm room, and I think I actually have some photos of that. So I really love that wave, that first wave of Rogue One sets. The U-Wing, I think still to this point, is probably my top 1 or 2 or 3 favorite new designs or new vehicle designs in Star Wars. And overall, that was just a really strong first wave. Like all the sets were at least good, I think, and some of them were incredible. Like for example, the U-Wing. Next up was Force Friday 2, the Force Friday surrounding The Last Jedi. And this one actually almost didn't even happen for me, which is kind of shocking to think about. But this basically was happening around the time we got Hurricane Harvey here in Houston, Texas. And basically, like, everyone was just trapped in their homes the week leading up to it. Like, couldn't go to work, couldn't go to school. Like, we were all just kind of stuck in the house. Not really wanting to go out there into the floodwaters. We were basically just stuck inside. So, leading up to it, I was, obviously hoping that somehow we'd be able to pull it off and get the sets. I believe one of the biggest concern was that the Lego sets for Force Friday for The Last Jedi would not have actually like made it to Houston because like shipment trucks just simply couldn't get into the city. I think what actually ended up happening was the Lego store that I worked at, we had gotten like a pre-shipment beforehand. Like they just kind of sent us some stuff early, so I was still able to pick it up. But like that was definitely a concern going into it that like there would just be no sets available. So unfortunately, like a lot of the festivities, for example, the midnight opening for Toys R Us just simply didn't happen. I think like all stores were basically closed that Thursday, and they opened up the next like that Friday. So I guess it still kind of did happen on Friday, just not really the midnight opening. So I didn't really get to experience that. And most stores just didn't have a lot of stuff for it. Like I remember, I think I went to Target that morning just to see, what might be there. And I think I got a couple of Black Series figures. And one cool thing that actually happened here is it was the first and only time I've ever just been kind of recognized out and about in public. There was a guy there, his name's Rex Fry on YouTube. I don't even know if he's still watching at this point. But he's like, "Are you Rich Boy J?" And I'm kind of like, "Yeah, I am. Nice to meet you." So we started talking. Apparently he had actually saw my display that I did at a local Comic-Con here in Houston earlier that year. So it was just kind of a weird, kind of cool experience just being recognized out and about, not in a Lego setting. Like I said, since then, that's not really happened to me. Once I left Target, I ended up going to my Lego store, which was such a mess to get to because so many of the streets in the city were flooded. So it took me so much longer to get to the store than it normally would have. But fortunately, I was still able to get all the sets, and I couldn't even build them because I basically had to go to school right after that and ended up just building them in my dorm room. I think I actually just ended up building them in my dorm room. I actually have a video on my channel right now you can go check out. I think it was, I guess, did I do a full wave review of the Last Jedi sets? I don't remember. It's whatever video I did on the Last Jedi sets. It's on this channel. You can see me, like, that's me in my dorm room right after that Force Friday. I do find it kind of funny that I think Solo Friday was probably the one that I did the most for, the one that I celebrated the most, and Solo kind of ended up being the movie that I liked the least out of this group. But Solo Friday was really the first Force Friday that I had gotten to share with a lot of you guys since I had started my YouTube channel, or at least doing Lego Star Wars stuff on my YouTube channel by that point. Me, Garrett, and John Cena actually all got together that morning. We went to, I think, Target just to see what they had just for general merchandise, because by this point, Toys R Us was gone. There was no more midnight Force Friday festivities. So it did suck that the year before there was no, like, I just had to miss the one for The Last Jedi because the stores were closed. And then that actually happened on being like the last midnight Force Friday event that Toys R Us would have had. So yeah, we got together, went to Target. I think I got a Black Series action figure. I got the all-in Aaron Reich Han Solo, and then we got together and we bought like, I think me and Garrett both bought the entire waves for Solo, and I think Cena got a few sets as well, and we just had a ton of sets for that day. Like, holy crap, like, that's a lot of sets. And it was basically an all-day event. We just sat there and we built the sets. We just kept going and kept going. That one was so fun because it's, like I said, the first Force Friday I really got to share with you guys here on this channel, and we made it a bit of an event. And I think that's what really inspired me to start making Force Friday like a big thing here on this channel. Unfortunately, fast forward to just recently, we had Triple Force Friday, which of course would have been the last Force Friday for this group of films, and I was out of town for it. I literally just couldn't do it because I had to go out of town for something. So what I ended up doing instead was just kind of pushing it back and doing Boyo Friday here on the channel, and there's no real need to dive into this because you guys just experienced it. It really wasn't that long ago, but overall that was still a super fun experience. It was actually the first time that I had seen Garrett in quite a while, and I feel like we picked up literally right where we left off. We just got to really talk about Star Wars, talk about some episode 9 stuff as well, and of course get to enjoy building some Lego sets together. Really does not get much better than that. But I think that's going to conclude this video, guys. I just kind of wanted to recount some Force Friday memories, really some crazy types of occurrences here, like with the hurricane that almost like made the Last Jedi Force Friday not happen. Solo Friday, where we really went above and beyond to celebrate it here on this channel. At the end of the day, Force Friday is really just a big merchandising push, but I still certainly appreciate all the memories it has given me and how excited it has made me for the subsequent Star Wars films that followed them. So with that being said, I'd really love to know, what are some Force Friday memories that you guys have? Any crazy stories like I have? Have they gone mostly smooth for you? Did any of you guys do the midnight openings back when Toys R Us made that a thing? Let me know in the comment section below. And finally, if you like what I do, go ahead, support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.